Today, let's talk about creating spin. Let me ask you, can the spin on your loops or pushes win the point for you outright? For example, your heavy backspin push makes them unable to loop, your loop forces a block out of bounds. Or they can't even return your serve because they misread the spin. If this rarely happens, it means you haven't mastered generating spin. First, I'll cover the spin on your push, then your loop, and finally your serve. Let's start with my understanding of the push. Creating friction is a very brief action. To get a really spinny push, you cannot just push forward from behind the ball. So how do I create spin on my push? I contact the ball with a downward brushing motion, hitting it with the bottom half of the racket first, and letting the ball roll up the racket face. Look, this is the initial contact point. With a downward motion, you brush the ball from this point to this point. That's how you grip the ball. So, if you want to properly grip the ball on your push, your racket must finish underneath the ball. After pushing the ball, your racket must be lower than the ball's initial trajectory. That's how you know you've created good spin. If you just hit the back of the ball, and your racket is on the same level as its trajectory, you're most likely not gripping it. So focus on this, start with your racket slightly above the ball, and finish with your racket below the ball's initial arc. That will generate spin. Second key point for all spin shots, serve, push, or loop, is have you ever felt your fingers generate the power? If not, let's do an experiment. You can follow along with me now. Open your hand. Press down with your thumb. Push forward with your index finger. And push up with your middle finger. Try it, this works for penhold grips too. This is finger power. Think about it, have you ever used these specific finger actions when you play? Many of you probably haven't. Pressing down with the thumb helps you learn to generate side spin. This applies to penhold as well. The index finger is for driving forward, and the middle finger is for lifting up. Index finger forward, even for penhold. Middle finger forward, middle finger up. Practice this motion, and we'll check the results in a few days. For penhold, pushing forward with the middle finger creates speed. Pushing up with the middle finger creates a great arc, which naturally generates spin. Now for shakehand, the index finger pushes forward for speed. The middle finger pushes up to create a better arc. Especially against backspin, if you feel your loop arc isn't good, is it because your middle finger isn't engaged? My backhand also uses the middle finger. When I loop backspin, my middle finger is always engaged. The fingers drive the racket. It's my middle finger that lifts the ball to create that arc. So, here's a specific drill. Shakehand players, use your index finger forward for speed and middle finger up for arc. Penhold players, use your middle finger forward for speed and up for arc. For penholders, your middle finger pushes like this. For shakehand players, your middle finger should rest firmly against the shoulder of the blade. As long as you grip the racket properly, you'll feel it. Why can't you feel your middle finger? First, your grip might be too loose. Tighten your grip slightly and don't hold it too low. The second reason is you're flexing your wrist upwards. You can't use your fingers if your wrist is flexed up. Let your wrist drop down. Relying on wrist power to generate friction when looping is unreliable under pressure. When your wrist drops, your middle finger naturally bends, giving it room to push upwards. If your wrist is flexed up, your finger is straight and has no angle to push from. The middle finger is for looping backspin, the index finger is for hitting against topspin. If you use your index finger for backspin loops, the effect isn't as good. The arc is created by the middle finger. Next time you play, try this. First, practice by self-tossing a few hundred times. Then consciously apply this feeling when you loop, and see the effect. I guarantee the ball will clear the net. At the moment of contact, the middle finger pushes up, and then the forearm continues forward. You're not pushing forward with the finger. That won't create enough arc. You must push forward and up. This method will at least guarantee you get the ball on the table. Actually, I use my middle finger even more obviously on my backhand. Let me show you my grip. When I want power, I grip like this. For my backhand grip, this is how I hold it. When I backhand loop, I switch to this grip so my middle finger can provide a solid push. When I rip forward, it's like this. But when I need to loop up to create an arc, my grip changes to this. This isn't a textbook standard grip. But if you hold it this way, with the middle finger slightly open and not flat on the blade, with the middle finger slightly raised and index finger extended, you can brace the racket more firmly. I use my middle finger to lift the ball and create the arc against backspin. I always push from this position. But against topspin, I don't need this, because I'm driving forward and just need to control the ball's arc. To summarize, against topspin, you hit over the ball's arc. Against backspin, you lift the ball up, so I must rely on my middle finger. Your biggest takeaway today should be learning to use your middle finger. Now for the second key point for those who struggle with spin. First, let's try it without a full backswing. I suspect a major problem is your backswing is too big, causing you to clash with the ball's momentum. When you clash with that force, you lose control at contact. The ball shoots off your racket too fast, and it goes in the net. If you struggle with spin, whether serving or looping, you first need to find the feeling of the ball gripping or sinking into the rubber. For now, let's eliminate the incoming ball's pace. You'll find it's much easier to create spin this way. It's hard to brush a fast-approaching ball. But it's easy with a self-tossed ball. Why? Because with a self-tossed ball, there's no incoming pace. You're closer to it, and you can complete the full brushing motion. So, if your spin is weak, don't take a backswing for now. Practice by looping with a high, slow arc. Just drop your arm down by your leg, not back behind you. Keep the racket close to the table and the ball, and focus on finding that gripping sensation. Don't load up or take a big backswing. I think this will help a lot. Now for the third point on looping spin. When you practice, your racket head should point down. At contact, keep the racket head at that same angle. After contact, let the racket head wrap around the ball to create an arc. When you practice, stand in your forehand position and aim cross-court. Start with the racket head down, keep that angle at contact, and then engage your forearm. After contact, watch my racket head. It wraps around the ball, creating a small semicircle, and finishes pointing toward the cross-court corner. Practice your spin like this, finishing towards the cross-court corner, and use your middle finger. Ideally, you should practice with this rolling drill to specifically develop the touch and feel for looping against backspin. Beginners can start by self-tossing to practice against topspin. More advanced players can practice this rolling drill. I have two requirements. First, your racket head must start pointing down. Second, the racket head must rotate through the shot, finishing by pointing cross-court. Complete this full wrapping motion. Do this for half a month, and I bet your consistency on backspin loops will improve by 30 to 50%. Once you've mastered this brushing motion, just add a bit of arm and body rotation, and you'll have a solid loop. Why do I insist on finishing towards the cross-court corner? Because the diagonal is the longest path, so you can't stop your motion halfway. The motion must be complete. Wrap the ball, follow through to the cross-court corner, then add your waist and body turn, and the full loop will emerge. If you stop your swing early, your racket will point down the line or to the middle, turning your loop into a pushy block. So make sure you complete the motion, wrap the ball, and finish pointing cross-court. Okay, let's talk about the serve. If your serve spin is poor, it's for one of three reasons. The first reason is that your brushing motion during the serve is too long and drawn out. You might be brushing the ball, but it's not spinning. The second reason is your brushing speed is too slow. The third reason is you're not brushing at all. What are you doing instead? At contact, your racket angle is fixed. You are just pushing it forward or downward, which is not creating any spin. So, how do we generate maximum friction? Listen to the sound of my shoe scuffing the floor. Isn't that motion small and fast? That's what creates maximum friction. Therefore, if we want a spinny serve, the practice motion cannot be too large. If you try to brush the ball through your entire service motion, it becomes a constant speed brush, which is basically no effective spin. So what's the solution? You need to isolate the moment of impact and practice just that part, because real friction happens in a fraction of the total movement. I might have a large backswing, but the actual brushing happens in a split second with a burst of acceleration, followed by the send-off. So the spin generation itself is very short and explosive. Therefore, to practice creating spin, you should use a compact motion, completed with a sudden burst of acceleration. First, let's be clear, when practicing spin, start by serving short. If you try to serve long and hard, you can't tell where the power is coming from. So practice serving short, the shorter the better. The short distance forces you to focus on pure friction. Even a long serve isn't created by brushing the ball the whole way. It uses the same short serve brushing technique, followed by an arm extension to send the ball long. The combined motion is a quick brush, then a forward push. If you try to brush it the entire way, the motion will be too slow and the long serve will lack pace. So first, practice short serves to make the brushing action more compact and learn to grip the ball. The second point is to increase the speed. How do you increase speed? During the swing, your hand should move like a snake or a fishtail. The motion is sequential. When you brush the ball with this kind of whip-like action, it will spin. If you just use a stiff, rigid motion to push the ball forward, it will never be very spinny. To develop a spinny serve, you don't need a pro-level motion, but you must at least separate the action of your wrist from your forearm. A motion like this, you must at least achieve this level of wrist snap. Otherwise, your serve will never have heavy spin. Whether it's a hook serve with sidespin backspin or sidespin topspin, you need that snap to impart spin. Why is your serve not spinny? Because your wrist and forearm are always moving as one unit. Only by letting the ball drop and then using a snappy, brushing motion can my racket face create maximum friction. So, you must separate your wrist and forearm. The third key point, accelerate, don't force it. What's forcing it? It's using brute strength to hit through the ball. If you do that, there's no time to create friction. Accelerate, don't force it, means your hand is very relaxed. From that relaxed state, you just increase the speed slightly, then a bit more, and the ball gets spinnier and spinnier. The key is to figure out how to make the racket accelerate to its highest speed in your hand. That will produce the spinniest ball. This is a different concept from just using raw power. Remember, accelerate, don't force. You are accelerating the racket head speed. Forcing it will only lead to more errors.